Welcome to Petrovaradin Fortress, an outstanding example of 18th century fortification architecture and one of the largest and best preserved artillery bastion fortresses in Europe, covering an area of about 112 hectares. It was built by Austrian military engineers, drawing on the advanced achievements of European, particularly French fortification schools, and its construction took place intermittently from 1692 to 1780. The fortress rises above the Danube on its right bank and has been overlooking the life of Novi Sad and Petrovaradin for several centuries. It is a complex structure spread across three interconnected levels: the upper fortress, the hornwork, a double ravelin bastion, and the lower fortress. Two outer fortifications along the river, the bridgehead on the left bank of the Danube and the island moat, have not survived to the present day. Today, it is a spacious plateau for walking, offering panoramic views of the river and the city, where massive walls stand alongside cafes, art studios, souvenir shops, and the iconic clock tower. But before we head up to the upper fortress, let's take a short look at the lower fortress, which includes the old town of Petrovaradin, and see it up close. We enter the old town of Petrovaradin on foot, via the road from the Varadinska Duga bridge coming from Novi Sad. In the past, the Novi Sad gate stood here, which was part of the defensive structures of the 17th and 18th centuries. Over time, as the fortress lost its military significance, the gate was dismantled, and today only its location and some traces in the urban layout remain. The old town of Petrovaradin itself is a true portal to the past, situated right beneath the fortress. Narrow streets, Baroque and neoclassical houses, old churches and buildings from the Austro-Hungarian era create a unique atmosphere. It was once home to soldiers, craftsmen and merchants, and today this corner of Novi Sad is considered one of the most authentic and picturesque areas. Walking through the old town, or Stari Grad in Serbian, you feel as if you are transported back to a time when the fortress was the center of life, and the town around it was its civilian extension. This is a place where history meets the present. A busy road runs alongside the ancient facades, yet the spirit of the past can still be felt in every stone. The old town itself isn't very large. We are already practically at its end, approaching the Belgrade Gate, which historically served as the main southern entrance to the Stari Grad. Despite its name, it does not lead directly to Belgrade, but only indicates the direction of the road. This monumental Baroque arch, adorned with columns, reliefs, and decorative elements, makes the gate a recognizable symbol of the fortress. In the past, trade caravans, military units, and official delegations passed through it, as it was the main entrance from the Danube and Belgrade. The gate is integrated into massive earthen bastions, their tops covered with grass, part of a complex defensive system. Today, the Belgrade Gate remains a popular entry point for tourists and serves as a living reminder of the fortress's rich history. By the way, now that we're talking about earthen bastions, there's a chance to climb one of them. Well, why not, right? If we're going to explore, we might as well do it to the fullest. From the bastion, there's a fantastic view of the former Slavonian-Sirmian command prison, hidden in the casemates between St. Charles and St. Francis bastions. It was built back in 1769. Just imagine how many stories are locked up there. Down to the left is the 18th century gunpowder storage, massive with reinforced walls and grassy ramparts, as if nature itself decided to camouflage it. And all of this is just a few steps away from the Belgrade Gate. But let's head back to the old town, as we are about to climb up to the upper fortress. We'll take the street right in front of us, where at the end we can see the Church of St. George. This Baroque complex was built in the early 18th century as a Jesuit church with a monastery, and after the suppression of the order, it became a parish church with residential spaces. Fun fact, its crypt is opened only once a year, on All Saints' Day, November 1st. By the way, unlike the Orthodox Church of St. George in the center of Novi Sad, this church is Catholic, reflecting the diversity of religious architecture in the region. and reminding us that spiritual life has always existed alongside the military fortress. To the right of the church, you can see a staircase. That's the one that leads up to the fortress. Let's go! The staircase was built in the 18th century as part of a fast access system to the bastions. Soldiers could quickly ascend from the lower town to the upper levels using it. Local stone was used in its construction, giving the steps an authentic appearance and making them an integral part of the fortress ensemble. Each flight of steps opens new perspectives of the Danube and Novi Sad, turning the climb into a kind of procession. Today, the staircase is known as the most picturesque and romantic routes to the fortress, especially in the evening when the city is lit up. Ahead of us is Ludwig's Gate, built in the mid-18th century directly on the staircase at the entrance to the tunnel. The gate is named after the military commander Ludwig of Baden, who expelled the Turks from Petrovaradin in 1691. By the way, some say that there are 214 steps here, while others claim 235. Either way, you might need a short break along the way. For example, you can do it here, before the final flight of steps, from where there's a stunning view of the old Petrovaradin and modern Novi Sad. Behind us stands the fortress itself, and there's just a short climb left to reach it. Just a little more cardio and we'll reach the very top. And here we are at the top. In front of you is Ludwig's upper bastion. Today, this is the most visited part of the fortress. It offers stunning views of the Danube and Novi Sad, with the iconic clock tower serving as the main landmark. There's also an authentic souvenir shop and gallery here, selling original designer items, t-shirts, and handcrafted products featuring symbols of Novi Sad and Petrovaradin. In front of us is the clock tower, a symbol of Petrovaradin Fortress and all of Novi Sad. Built in the 18th century, it immediately draws attention with its unusual clock. The large one shows the hours and the small one shows the minutes, so the time can be seen even from the Danube. The mechanism is still wound manually every day, and because of its quirks, the tower is nicknamed the Drunken Clock. It runs fast in the summer and slow in the winter. This is also where tourists most often stop to feel the breath of history and enjoy the city panorama. And here we are at a spot offering one of the most beautiful and romantic views of the Danube and Novi Sad. It's no wonder all the railings here are covered with love locks. Couples write their names or a date, attach their lock to the railing and throw the key into the river. You can find everything from tiny heart-shaped locks to massive padlocks, many of which have been hanging for decades. But these are more than just locks. They are thousands of little love promises woven into the history of the fortress. The spacious upper plateau is surrounded by paved paths that are perfect for strolling, allowing you to take in the fortress from all sides, from the historic bastions to the panorama of Petrovaradin and the industrial landscapes on the horizon. Let's take a walk here on the upper platform of St. Joseph's Bastion, which was named after Emperor Joseph I of Habsburg, during whose reign the fortress construction was particularly active. From its high ramparts, the main communication routes and entrances to both the lower and upper fortress could be closely monitored. Inside the bastion, a system of underground military galleries with loopholes and a casemate with cannon embrasures, designed for defense, has been preserved. By the way, an interesting fact: the bastion also houses a small chamber planetarium, making it one of the most unusual spots in the fortress. These paths on top of the fortress were once part of the empire's defenses. Soldiers marched along them, rolling cannons and carrying ammunition. Today it's quiet here, but the stone and earth still remember the purpose for which they were created. By the way, straight ahead below is Leopold's Gate. We'll come back to it a little later. You can also notice abstract sculptures on this plateau. They appeared here in the second half of the 20th century and do not depict specific people or events. These are generalized human forms beyond time, focusing on movement, mass, and the internal tension of the body rather than faces. If you turn around, you can see the parade square and the Novi Sad City Museum. The parade square is located in front of the arsenal and paved with cobblestones. Thanks to its central location and open perspective, it served as a place for troop formations, parades, and garrison and state ceremonies. Today, this place still preserves an atmosphere of grandeur and reminds visitors of the fortress's military and ceremonial life. The exhibitions of this museum are dedicated to the history of the fortress and the development of the city from the 18th to the 20th century. Here you can see household items, military equipment, documents, and materials related to the life of Novi Sad and its inhabitants, as well as visit part of the fortress's underground military galleries. Behind the museum stand unusual horse sculptures, including one with 2 heads. They remained after the city exhibition Parade of Horses, held in Novi Sad in the mid-2000s. These are not historical figures, but contemporary art objects that add a touch of unexpected creativity to the atmosphere of the fortress. The sculptures are crafted in an unusual, fantastic form, and their presence on the plateau has become part of the city's artistic context and a popular photo spot for tourists. Right by the museum stands an old guardhouse, modest yet atmospheric, a small detail of the fortress. Narrow windows, a stone floor, and a wooden bench inside remind us of its former role. Sentries once stood watch here, guarding the arsenal and entrances. Today it serves more as a historical touch, adding authenticity and charm to the fortress landscape. Behind the museum, if you look to the left, there's a 50-meter arched tunnel that leads to the court gate, the senior of the 2 main entrances to the upper fortress. Hard to believe, but this tunnel lives a double life. By day, it serves as a strict stone passage into the fortress, and by night, it transforms into an underground club, attracting electronic music enthusiasts. The club opened right in the tunnel in 2014 and is still operating today. Walking through the tunnel, we arrive at the court gate. Its dimensions are impressive, about 5 meters wide and a full 8 meters high. The gate stands on the southeast axis between the bastions of St. Innocent and St. Leopold. In the past, military convoys and artillery moved through this passage, and today this narrow road allows 2-way traffic controlled by a traffic light. You know what? Let's take a turn off the main road, for example to the right, and walk along the path between the bastions. After all, remember, if we're going to explore, we might as well do it to the fullest. After climbing over a small hill, we find ourselves between the bastions in a truly magical place. Just imagine, soldiers' boots once clattered here, and commands were shouted in Hungarian, German, and Serbian. The place looks as if a knight or the spirit of the fortress could appear at any moment, or Frodo and Bilbo Baggins from The Lord of the Rings walking toward their next adventure. And looks like our detour paid off. The view this path opens up is stunning. Now let's get closer and see what's there. Another viewpoint between the bastions overlooking the Danube, where the wind on the shoot day was so strong that it nearly blew the camera over several times. I had to prop it with my backpack and pray that everything would be fine. After going down, we find ourselves in front of another parking area. This is in fact the beginning of the hornwork, the 2-horned bastion, which is one of the components of the Petrovaradin Fortress. Here ahead of us you can also see the Kamenica Gate, an entrance hidden within the earth ramparts of the horned fortification. This gate connects the 2-horned bastion with the other defensive lines and leads along the main road to the upper fortress and further on to Kamenica, a suburb of Novi Sad. Passing by the yellow guard booth, we find ourselves on top of yet another bastion, with the Danube on one side, and on the other, hidden among the trees, the Academy of Arts and its studios, which are still active today. There's even a private house here, where the fortress staff might live. Just look, a cozy little yard, and even a small household setup. Walking straight along the path and climbing to the very top of the bastion, we reach one of the highest points of the fortress. Here, it becomes truly clear just how vast its territory is, and the majestic panorama of the river only adds to the beauty of this place. By the way, notice the arrow. This is the very field where the Exit Music Festival used to take place. Every summer from 2000 to 2025, music artists from all over the world gathered here. And for several days, the fortress grounds turned into a huge open-air stage under the sky. And here we are again on the narrow road by the court gate, which we stepped away from just a little while ago. Secret paths are of course exciting, but the main routes of the fortress are no less fascinating and full of their own stories. Despite the reversible traffic and the traffic light, you still need to be careful, as this passage is extremely narrow. Hopefully traffic jams and accidents never happen here. Exiting the gate, we immediately turn right. Here stands the Monument to the Patriots. It is dedicated to the Serbs from the Srem region, who were executed by the Austrian army. In July 1914, after the declaration of war on Serbia, Austro-Hungarian forces began reprisals against the local Serbian population. When the Serbian army crossed the Danube and entered Srem, the Austrians saw it as a threat and responded with mass executions. The victims were civilians, peasants, artisans, and members of the intelligentsia suspected of sympathizing with the Serbian army. The monument was erected later to commemorate these people as patriots who died for their national identity and loyalty to Serbia. Now let's head left from the court gate toward the Leopold Gate. We've already seen it while walking along the upper platform. This is the very spot where, if you follow the cobblestone path, you'll find the entrance to the catacombs. It's marked with an arrow again. Let's go down there. Bummer, it's closed. And not just closed, it's sealed. Getting inside right here is obviously impossible. But one thing is certain. Beneath the fortress lies an entire underground city more than 16 kilometers long. They say you can enter it with local guides through the old railway tunnel nearby, but I decided not to try. Maybe another time. Walking here is pure pleasure. The sun is shining, everything around is green, birds are singing, and the best part, there's no one else around. We're truly lucky to be here on such a beautiful day. And really, it is luck. Just a couple weeks later, everything was covered in snow, in some places even up to waist level. In front of us is the Gate of Charles VI, the outer northeastern gate of the upper fortress. It is named after Emperor Charles VI of the Holy Roman Empire, the father of Maria Theresa. This entrance through the Ravelin, as well as the bridge, was constructed at the end of the 18th century. On the gate's facade, there's an inscription reading 1760, marking the completion of construction works on the fortress. If we turn 180 degrees and go to the left, this road will take us to the very first flight of the old staircase by the Church of St. George. Passing through the Gate of Charles VI, we arrive at Leopold's Gate. This is a ceremonial entrance, built in the second half of the 18th century, along the axis between the bastions of St. Joseph and St. Innocent. Above the arch, an oval stone relief has been preserved, featuring the coat of arms of the Austrian Empire and the Habsburg motto, Viribus Unitis, with united forces. Next to it, the date 1694 is inscribed, reminding us of the unsuccessful Ottoman siege of Petrovaradin, or simply Varadin, as it was called at the time by the Hungarians and Germans. Climbing to the top and standing above the gates, you realize these gates are not just a line of defense, but a stone monument to imperial pride and resilience. And we will continue our walk along the walls of the upper fortress. After all, such a beautiful sunset is best enjoyed from above. From up here, we can see the familiar views again. In fact, we've already seen most of what's here, yet there's still a little more I'd like to show. But we're in no rush. We're simply enjoying the warm sunset and the views around us. And here we are, atop St. Leopold's Bastion, the first fortification structure of the Petrovaradin Fortress. Its construction began on October 18, 1692, by order of Emperor Leopold I of the Holy Roman Empire, one of the most influential rulers of 17th century Europe. It was under him that the Austrian monarchy finally established control over these lands after the expulsion of the Ottoman Empire. Thanks to its position, the bastion controlled the flow of the Danube, its left bank, as well as the southern and eastern approaches to the upper fortress. Inside the bastion, a casemate with cannon embrasures was built to defend the court gate. Let's take a little more walk along the fortress from above, enjoy this wonderful sunset, and see what else awaits us ahead. To our left is one of the oldest structures of the fortress, the gunpowder storage, built in the early years of the 18th century. Its massive walls, reinforced with 6 pairs of brick counterforts, and arched vaults under a double-deck roof securely stored the most valuable cargo, ammunition. The storage was hidden deep in the bastion and protected by a retaining wall to ensure that not a single spark could reach the gunpowder. The elongated building to our right is the Long Barracks, the recognizable silhouette of the Petrovaradin Fortress. These barracks were built in the early second half of the 18th century to house military and administrative personnel. Workshops and storage rooms were located on the lower level facing the Danube. Today, the lower level houses art studios, while the upper floors are occupied by a hotel, a tapestry workshop, and a meteorological station. And through this narrow passage with a rather steep staircase, you can climb up to the museum and the horse sculptures that you're already familiar with. The final location of this massive tour is Maria Theresa's Bastion, where we are now on the upper platform, under whose reign the construction works on the fortress entered their final phase. This is the longest bastion, formed from 2 semi-bastions. Deep within the northern semi-bastion is the reservoir of the fortress's oldest water system, built in the 18th century, as well as the entrance structure of the railway tunnel that was laid under the upper fortress in 1883. Finally, we can't help but visit once more the most romantic corner of the fortress, where we've already been, next to the clock tower. The sun is already nearing the horizon, and more people are gathering around, just like us, eager to see all this beauty from above. We hope you truly enjoyed walking with us through the old town and the Petrovaradin Fortress, a place where every wall holds centuries of history and every corner breathes the past. Now you know almost all the paths, towers, and viewpoints, and who knows, maybe you'll want to come here yourself and see it all with your own eyes. After all, that's exactly why we create our tours. This time we put in an enormous amount of work, so we'd be very grateful for a like and a comment. And be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss our next videos. See you on our future adventures.